There we go. Hey everybody, my name is Evan. This is Tim, and I am Evan from the Portland Seed House and the Heirloom Seed House, and this is Tim Mountz from Happy Cat Farm, and we're doing a little tomato babble today. And what that is just basically a couple tomato lovers that kind of get together on a Saturday afternoon and spend a half an hour just talking about tomatoes, and that's what we're going to do. So I know everybody loves tomatoes, and right now this time of year is the tomato planting season, and I know I've been going crazy, even ordering late tomato seeds that I find in places and stuff like that. And we just kind of wanted to, Tim and I haven't got a chance really to chat too much because Tim is in a whole different region than I am. I'm zone 8 here. What are you, Tim? What are you over there?
It's 6A, 7. It switches. The weather is changing so much in the mid-Atlantic. It's hard to pin down.
Yeah, and I'm in Oregon and Portland, Vancouver region, and so definitely changing, for sure. Yeah, year to year, I feel like tomato growing has definitely adapted into. I've done a lot more like dry farming projects, things where I'm allowing like we have a lot of. Our rains are definitely not supposed to happen in the summer. And we've been getting these intermittent July rains and things where, we can kind of put things in the ground and be like, hey, I'm not going to water this. And then we still have been getting a fairly dry August and September, which allows for, I think, a really great tomato crop personally, because, they really love that kind of dry end of the season. And you really need that dry end of the season to have super productive tomatoes, at least here. And I can't imagine you guys having rain like all the time. So your varieties are going to be totally almost different and probably a lot more crack and prone resistant, to those things like that, So, that's kind of what, we wanted to talk about today is what are your favorite tomatoes up there? I mean, you don't have to give away all your secrets, but what are some of the things that you use, for, like your favorite market varieties versus favorite, fresh eating varieties and things like that. And I know things that I take to market, some things don't get to market because necessarily they're almost too sensitive. They just, you almost need to eat them right there because they'll just fall apart, like wild blackberries or whatnot,
Yeah. You ever grow big white pink stripes?
Big white pink stripes. Is that I have a Dagma's Perfection, which is it's a white and it has a pink stripe, and I always wonder the naming of some
Yeah.
if it's the same.
It's like wet Kleenex. It's the most delicate thing. You can't even pick it without bruising it.
Okay.
And everybody asks me why I grow it, and I'm like, eat it. Like, try it.
Right.
It's sugar sweet. It's amazing.
Right.
But I can't take that to market.
Right. And some of those I feel like I don't know, Malakatovia, I think it is another one that's it's really early, and I think it's just the skin. It's just kind of if it has a very, very delicate skin, those market crops are a lot harder, take to market and stuff. We've been kind of having we both love the Pianello. I think the Pianello del Vesuvius has been one of my tried and true. I think just because of its skin factor. It's kind of like bomb proof.
Yeah.
It's one of those tomatoes that you can, I think that's why the Italians have used it for so many years, right?
Well, it keeps, that thick skin, like, lets it hold for so long,
Right.
Impenetrable to disease. And just, here we get, like, in 2017, it rained every other day. I mean, it was horrible to be a tomato farmer, and we're field growers, so we grow everything outdoors. And it was rough. Not as bad as the year the late blight came in 2014. That was just, I just sat in my truck and cried in the tomato field. I didn't even go into the field. I walked almost an acre and a half and maybe got 4 John Plumeys out of it, and that was it.
Wow.
And I mean, it was 1 week it was looking great, then next week it looked horrible, and next week it was over.
Right. So how many acres are you growing the tomatoes right now?
This year will be about 3/4 of an acre in just tomatoes.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of tomatoes. I don't know if people know realize how many tomatoes you can produce off of a very small amount of
Yeah.
area, and so we probably grow about the same. We grow it intermittently with a lot of our other CSA crops and stuff like that, and market crops too. And what are the things that I mean? You grow peppers. I've seen you grow a ton of interesting peppers. And what else is on your site? Is tomatoes and peppers. And do you have anything else on there? I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, we do a full range of stuff for seed, radishes, a bunch of heirloom beans from the region,
Fun.
all the greens.
Right.
Um, I grow those mostly for seed. I do take some excess to market,
Hmm.
but it's just so labor intensive to grow greens and not be a full-time greens grower. I would
Sure.
much rather focus on tomatoes and seeds and growing those things. We have a nice garden here at the house, but other than that, I don't grow too much beyond seed crops. And that's
Right.
they're all intermixed in the tomatoes in that field. Um, and we also grow a bunch of corn, more and more corn every year. So we
Interesting.
we do a
Is that
lot of
for
polenta.
polenta corn? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite polenta corn you've been messing with?
Oh man, there's just so many that I hit in the last year. Probably Bermencia
Right.
um, from Bergamot. It's yellow, it's hard, it's got like it's not as beaked as many of the Italians. It has a little
Right.
dent to it, so it's much later crossed with some, more modern corn that has a dent in it.
Hmm.
Um, and
Corn and tomatoes grow really well together too.
they
Yeah,
do.
so a lot of people don't, going back into the tomato thing. I mean, that's what I feel like having these other crops kind of, help strengthen, your ecosystem too. So it's not just we're growing one monocrop of something, it's definitely adding all these other things that are adding, just that overall biodiversity that you kind of need. So,
Yeah.
uh, when people ask you, what's your favorite tomato? That's such a hard question to answer. And I
It's
feel
not a hard question to answer if you have 2 hours.
sure. So I guess what I tell people is like, oh, I'm like, well, I always start with what color,
Yeah.
because I feel like people are kind of, color segmented in terms of, so I only eat red tomatoes, or I don't, but I'm saying, they're gonna, it's like, or I only, I can't. I once had somebody tell me at a farmer's market that I think it was a purple calabash, and it was one of my first seasons growing. It was like 15 years ago, and they're like, "That is the ugliest tomato I have ever seen," and I was like, "Thank you." So I'm like, I don't know, and the purple calabash is like, it's a ribbed mess.
Yeah.
And so I understand what and everybody is, when you have so many choices, you can be very selective in terms of, and then from year to year, I feel like it differs.
Yeah.
There's some that I feel like each year I'll find something new that I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do that every season, right?
Yeah.
So, so I mean, what's if you were like, what should we go by color? Should we just go by time? I mean,
Well, I also have to deal with New Jersey here, so everybody like Jersey tomatoes were a thing pre-World
sure,
War II, and they were all determinate varieties. They all like grew a certain height, filled the fields, picked them all. A lot of them went for ketchup and tomato soup at
hmm,
Heinz and Campbell's, and then the rest were eaten fresh.
right,
And I for years I was like, no, this isn't a Jersey tomato. And now people are saying, is this from Jersey? I'm like, yep, sure. Whatever. Like I can't even tell you that Jersey tomatoes aren't Jersey tomatoes anymore. Like
right,
they're all hybrids and have names like B5492. Like boring. I don't care about that. That's the most
right.
boring name ever. Um,
Now they look like cannabis names.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, now the Atomic, Brad Gates is like Atomic, what is it? Those all Atomic Grape, and
yeah.
there's so many others. So there's like Blue Pineapple, and
Northern Light. And,
there's a lot of fun ones. Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know, by color, I think would be kind of interesting. I mean, but then there's that whole other category. Then I'm like, well, what do you want to do with it?
Yeah.
And so now with all the storage tomatoes, I've been collecting recently. I think there's like a whole nother category, which is like that 3 month, 2 to 3 month tomato, and you've kind of been, I've seen some of your posts on Instagram and stuff, and seeing which ones last, like the last of the last of the last.
Yeah.
And that's kind of fun too. And that's just those people, should be like, generally, I don't consider those best for fresh eating. I think cooking with some of those is traditionally probably what the storage tomatoes were used for.
Yeah, a lot of them are horrible.
Yeah,
Like,
some of them are really bad. Some of them are particularly good. I think the Vesuvius,
yeah,
being one of them. Going back to that, there's a Crispiana. There's a couple in the Italian slow food gamut that are really good. There's one. Was it Cane Torre? That's a one from. It's like a southern Italy one. It's a hanging variety, but it's a round. And that's another one. Traditionally, they've woven with cotton. They actually do individually, not like the Vesuvius, not on the truss. They'll go individually on each one and eat and weave them into rosettes and such. And
wow.
that is, I watched them do that. And that was, they sit there in a little cotton twine and whoop, 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 just take another tomato and wind it up until you have an actual bunch of them. They're not as large as the rosettes of the Vesuvius. They tend to be kind of smaller, almost little kind of holding things. And then they're just basically for that 2 to 3 month range after you harvest. So I think too the bugs in Italy are really bad, so they tend to get stuff really quickly. So like all the diseases come in like after July. I don't think they can farm.
Wow.
So I think after thousands of years they're just kind of in it. And that's why they've created a storage tomato, is so because they have to get their crop out. If it gets too hot in southern Italy or something like that too. So there's too much disease pressure and whatnot. So yeah. So give me some of your favorite. Give me your top. Just ramble off top 5 and let's talk about those guys.
Black Creme, still my all-time favorite. My first out-of-body tomato experience working on a farm in college. Still, if I had to pick one for a desert island, that would be the one I took with me. Mm-hmm. Coyote, the little yellow cluster, it's a pimpifolium, and I can't even describe the taste. It's sweet and fruity and just the most complex flavor. It's so different than tomato flavor. We've been growing a lot of those. We just cut the whole truss and then put them on our mixed quarts. Man, we have a local one here. It's a paste variety. Some of the history I found on it, people used to call it rabbit's foot. Looks a lot like Jersey Devil. And it's named after a Quaker meeting house right outside of town here. And it's called London Grove. And that is like, you can just pull that off and bite it, and it's amazing. And then if you make sauce out of it, it just keeps getting better. Like the more stuff you do with it.
That's one of the ones you sent me.
Yeah.
We traded years ago, and I think that's one of the ones you sent me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty phenomenal. I really love I love Dr. Weike's and Northern Lights. They're both like, we started last year in our farm pivot, we started a sandwich collective, and we do BLTs at pop-ups at a brewery here.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. And those like, big slices of those, tricolors and bicolors are just amazing. And then Dr. Weike's is just this like orange yellow, and it's big fat slice of that. And some.
What was the name of the didn't you name it something differently? The sandwich company?
Oh yeah, the Toad Collective.
Toad, was it called?
Toad Sandwich Collective.
Toad, that's what it's Toad,
Yeah.
like the frog. Yeah, right.
Yeah, my friend's girlfriend did this really cool picture with Toad, and we were like, "Oh my god, that's it!" So we made stickers, and
I remember that.
Yeah.
Now I remember.
And then I would say, geez, there were so many great ones last year.
What do you think of a lot of the blue ones? Like Anthocyanins and those things.
So I would say Dances with Smurfs and Black Dragon are I did a pretty big grow out about 4 years ago, and I know there's a bunch more now.
Mhm.
Um, if you don't let them on the vine till they lose all their awesome color, um, they don't taste great.
Mhm.
I love that they have, those blue genes in them and they're high in antioxidants. And I love the research that they pulled those genes out of like Peru in the 60s.
Mhm.
And it's great, but the flavor is just kind of subpar on most of them.
Mhm.
Dances with Smurfs is really cool. It's got blue to the foliage,
Mhm.
and it's a heavy set, but like to teach kids how to harvest it correctly. Um,
Just to teach employees how to harvest it correctly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So that
and I
there-
see farms all over the place, picking green zebras at the wrong time. And here's our cherry mix, and there's a green tomato in it. I'm like, that's not right.
so that's actually important too. I think that, all these different colors and shapes and flavors and stuff, and I think that's what kind of makes you an expert is the fact that when you go into the field, you know which tomatoes going to be ripe at what point in time. You can just look at it. Be like, yeah, those are done. I mean, because I'm just by that sheen that they give you, they kind of look like gems.
Yeah,
All of a sudden they'll pop, and you'll be like, oh, these are ready. You know what I mean? And you
yeah,
go over to them, and they just have that one bit of like yield that you're like, oh, there it is. That's perfect.
yeah,
Because I think for me at least, I leave. I don't like taking a tomato out of the field that's like at all too soft. I want it like right before, so it has like a day or two.
yeah,
Like it has to have a little, and that's what goes back to our original conversation. Some tomatoes don't have that. I mean,
yeah.
some you take them off and they're just already getting. I think what's the other one? See Aunt Ruby's German Green. That thing just they're literally they just die in the field. They're really good, and like for a
Yep.
sauce or something like that, if you were to just put them all together. But definitely, just the holding capacity on that is very low.
Yeah, there's a very short window on some of them. And then like even the other tomatoes, like we chill our tomatoes, we don't refrigerate. So like there's just a AC unit in the wall and a window, and like it's still the ambient air temperature in there at the front is still 90 degrees, in the summertime.
Sure.
So it's just taking a little of the humidity out. It's not really cooling them. Um, maybe 4 days at best, the way we harvest. Someone asked me why my tomatoes are more expensive than everyone else's. And I was like, because they're better.
Right.
Because we're not picking breakers in the field and like letting them sit. It's full flavor in the field. It's not coming out of a high tunnel. It's going to bricks like crazy if you run it through a bricks meter, and they're just better. They have that struggle, that fight, and we're just looking for varieties that are.
I think that's similar to what we do too in our growing patterns too. I think is a lot of people baby their tomatoes. I
Yeah,
think we don't, and I
yeah,
think that's kind of like if people want to know a secret about tomatoes, don't baby them. Let them have at it. You know what I mean? Really
yeah,
I mean, I don't even I'll fertilize early, but after a certain point, I cut everything off. Like I'm just like, you guys fight. So and that makes a good tomato. I mean,
yeah,
really, letting that really kind of struggle in the field after a certain point. I think this is what, you need to understand, not you people, is there's a point where the tomato now is like, now you're on your own. Now, you don't get any love from me. You don't get any water from me. You don't get, you get nothing. And it really they thrive out there. Tom Wagner, that's one of the things he does in his breeding program. He basically has tomatoes completely stressed out to their gourd. And so into increasing, their seed and increasing the fruiting essentially is because that's what, a plant wants to do. It wants to fruit when it's stressed out. And so the problem is if you're not babying that plant to get to the point of large enough to fruit enough, that's when you cut off all the nutrients, everything, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
it kind of fights and dives deep for roots and all those nutrients and things like that too. So,
Are
but
you getting,
what's
are you
up?
getting any tomato varieties out of the Ukraine?
Yeah, so I actually originally started with a lot of Ukrainian varieties, like the Dubaro Black and the Dubaro Red Ukrainians. Those were some of my first favorite tomatoes. I think I went away from some of those because some of the flavors weren't as on point, because as I wanted. But now I think the some of the Siberian tomatoes are actually a little bit better. Um, and just depends, I think, what region. Bulgaria has an amazing selection of tomatoes. I have the Konare that I got a couple seasons ago, and that one is phenomenal.
Mhm.
That one, it's a huge, big pink. And again, these are kind of recommendations for probably our Northwest. I don't know how well the Konare would do up there just because it needs a little bit of time and not a lot of rain, because it is a big pink and it probably is a little bit on the thinner skin side. Uh,
Yeah.
but it does have a nice little bit of holding capacity. But the flavor on that one has far exceeded everybody's expectations. And the story with that one is it traveled in a cane across some the Mesopotamia there or whatever it was. But it's one of the original Bulgarian varieties that when seeds were very highly traded and sought after, it was protected, and
Yeah.
it's been a tomato around for a lot, like probably thousands of years at this point. So
Yeah. Just seems like tomato heads in the Ukraine are exploding right now. Like every site that I see or every person on social media, it's like
mhm.
in the Ukraine and they're doing like thousands of varieties and
Well, I see the blues, a lot of the crosses. They really
yeah.
got into that the breeding. I have definitely a few. It's almost harder to keep track now whose is what and what is whose, because there are a lot more breeders now
Yeah.
than there used to be. So I think that's been kind of an interesting point. Is just trying to figure out where that's from,
Yeah.
and whose tomato that is with some of the newer stuff. So, but this is I just want to show you this was something that this is one of my favorite things that
Nice.
I have in my tomato cabinet collection. I have a cabinet of seeds, and I always keep memorabilia. But these are Tim sends out these adorable bags with I don't know if he sends them out to everybody. It could be putting you on the
Special
spot.
people. Special
Yeah,
people.
special people, but they are the cutest little bags. And I just that little stamp with the little bags and the seeds in them is I think those are the fun things that make a really nice touch to a company, and putting on especially tomatoes. And it's for me, they're kind of like you get this gem in a bag, and it's like this is super cool. So
Yeah.
stuff like that.
I have another one to send you that I can't talk about yet, but I'll send you some seeds and send you the
Cool.
information about it. And
Fun.
it'd be nice for you to grow because
Yeah.
so in my tomato school, I sent it to everybody that signed up. So there's some in Japan, there's some in the
Oh, fun.
UK,
Yeah.
all over the East Coast, and it's probably the rarest tomato ever. I mean, it's going to blow
Fun.
your mind when you hear the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I like that.
yeah, it's pretty cool. So I'll send you some of those out. Um, have you ever grown, or did I ever send you a tomato? It's called Lloyd E. Frey.
I don't think so.
It's a big pink. It does really well here, and it's the kind of tomato like people bite into it at market and they just swear in front of their kids. It's so good.
Hmm.
It's really. I prefer it to Brandywine, but I have to grow Brandywine because my farm's irrigated with water from the Brandywine. It's right here. It's where we swim
Right.
on hot days. Like
You have a really cool backstory there with the tomatoes and all that too. So there's so much history over there.
yeah, yeah. There's it's the horticultural capital of the United States. We have all these big gardens here,
Hmm.
um, but I'm sure your weather forecasters never use the word hazy, hot, and humid.
Yeah,
Uh,
we don't know what humidity is. Actually, the last 2 years we've experienced humidity for like a few days, and people just start to freak out.
yeah,
Because we're like, oh my gosh, it's raining in July. What is going on right now? And there's humidity in July, and we've just not had that in the past. And so
yeah.
it's been
Yeah,
interesting.
we're subtropical for 2.5 months, so it's like
Mhm.
it's just a weird place to live. It can
Mhm.
freeze and get really cold in the wintertime. We had a pretty good winter this year too. We had a lot of snow and snow
Mhm.
pack for the first time in a few years. Um,
When you get in the fields, Mother's Day?
I'm usually planting by Mother's Day. So
Right.
last year I was plowing the fields in April, end of March, April, when this year it was still snowing, the week that I plowed last year. Um,
It's definitely a later season this year than it was last.
yeah, for sure. But
We
I,
didn't
I
get we
feel
didn't
like,
get in the fields in February at all. I mean, March, yeah, we had a window, so.
yeah, I shoot for the third week of May to put everything out, all
Mhm,
my tomatoes and eggplants and peppers. Um, I sometimes do the tomatoes and eggplants and hold the peppers for another week,
mhm.
just to make sure that soil temperature is where we need it. And we've been using woven black plastic between the rows instead of mowing or weeding.
That's what I did for the last couple seasons, and because I don't like it actually where the plants are. I like it on the rows, and
Yeah,
it's seemingly because I think they need a little aeration. Like I think that it almost tends to, like when you put the black plastic on them, it tends to just almost they don't grow to their full potential or something. I don't know. I know
yeah.
it tends.
We use biodegradable plastic, and
Okay.
if we get the woven plastic on, and then we lay the biodegradable stuff, and then we put the woven stuff down, and that just makes like this huge black area, and it just heats up.
Right.
And so we do get a really good, um, even kind of like a bubble over the field temperature wise.
Hmm.
So if nighttime temperatures drop, it still has some radiant heat coming out of it.
Hmm.
So, I mean, but
The bioplastic in between would be a good idea.
yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, that's
yeah,
cool.
yeah, we use it and it's woven. We roll it up. This is our fifth year using it, and we had one mouse get into one pile and eat a little bit, but by the time I used to spend with you know, kids weed whacking and then putting straight gas in a brand new steel weed whacker and blowing it up, I was just like, I'm done with this. And then I read something out of the
Hmm.
University of Wisconsin at Madison, and they're like, yeah, well, mowing just shoots the disease all over from the soil, all over the plants. And I was like, why didn't I think of that? Yeah, of
Right.
course it does.
Right.
So yeah, I've seen a cut in sporata and some of those other foliar diseases early on. I mean, you know, come August, like it's just a humid, hot
Right.
jungle, and I mean sometimes it can get really dry, and we'll have like this like phenomenal push, and I'll be like, looking for shoe boxes in my house to put tomatoes, and I have so many tomatoes I don't even know what to do with. Like, well,
Right.
everything, my production facility is just packed. There's just tomatoes everywhere, and
Mhm.
you know, fruit flies like you can't even imagine.
Right. And so we do a lot of storage on speed racks, the aluminum speed restaurant racks. And
Yeah.
so we'll store them, upside, like when I pull them off the field and I'll chill them down, we put them in the storage racks and keep them there, and then kind of transition, 4 or 5 of those out and kind of in and out on those, just because, you need that heat, that field heat to kind of get down off of them before you're going to kind of transfer them around. And I think that's kind of what you were saying with your AC and your unit and stuff like that. Um, One tomato I'm kind of really excited about this year. People always ask. I mean, I order seeds from like everywhere. I don't
Yeah.
know if you do the same thing and just try different stuff out every year, but people are like, oh, where do you get your seeds from? I'm like, there's not one place. You know,
Right.
I think that's the really fun thing is like, if something catches your eye and interest, you try it. You try a little bit of it, and then you try. And I don't know if you have this one, but these guys, um, University Lava
No,
Flow.
no, I haven't got that yet.
So this is one of Gary Ibsen's their Tomato Fest. It's just they have a good collection of tomatoes. Uh,
Yeah.
if you look at, he's been doing this for probably twice as long as we have. You know what I mean? So he's definitely got some good stuff, and he ranked that as their best tomato last year.
Oh wow.
So I was like, okay, if that was your best tomato, we're gonna try it up here in the Northwest. They're down in California, and
Yeah.
they're definitely a little bit, they're hotter. They're looking for that kind of hot weather. The Italians do really well down there too. That's why some of the California stuff is our California weather. For here is probably like none other. That's why they grow so much food. You know, Oregon is kind of like really nice because we get the thin skins. You know, we
Yeah.
get those cool nights. You know, or do you have cool nights or is it hot night? Is it pretty warm at night there?
It stays pretty hot
Is it
in
pretty
the
hot?
summertime. Yeah, it doesn't cool down.
Right,
I mean, it can be 75 degrees at night. Like
right,
wake up in the morning, it's already 75 degrees. It's like, oh
right.
God.
It's crazy that you're so far north and it has that, you know, that much predomination of that, you know, humidity and everything too.
Yeah,
It almost sounds like it's the south, like growing in the
yeah.
south a little bit. So
Well, I mean, it's really like it's it's the middle, like we're smack in the middle. Like we have maple trees in our yard and we tap for maple syrup, and I can get in my truck and
yeah,
drive and get crabs in like, you know, 15 minutes, so
right.
it's all this southern influence and all this northern influence, and
That is
then it's
neat.
mid-Atlantic.
That is neat. Yeah. It's fun, like just thinking about all the different climates. When you go and grow in a different climate, you know, it's just it's totally different. I mean, everything
Yeah.
changes. You know, your whole thing changes. Well, yeah, yeah. I don't know. This has been fun, man. I don't know. I have we could probably chat and do this for like hours and hours. What you know, I'll give you a couple of my last favorites, and
All right,
I'm
I got a couple more I was writing down here.
favorites. I don't know this season. You know, the lava flow is definitely, hopefully, you know. Also, what I'm really excited, Gardener's Sweetheart. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
No.
That one, it's becoming it's a cross. It's can't remember what the guy's name is, but Fruition Seeds and those guys kind of up near you. It's that really it's that old timey gardener guy. Can't remember his name is right now off the top of my head, but he has it's a really interesting. It's a little tiny. It's almost like heart shaped,
Mm-hmm.
and they're on maybe like 8 to a truss.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, just really beautiful. It's just, you know, really in terms of its value for flavor, it's super high, and those are hopefully can become some new favorites.
Nice.
Yeah, so this is, I'm kind of grabbing we literally just seeded. We just seeded like 2-3 days ago, and so, you know, we try to get. I mean, tomatoes grow fast. You know, I kind of get everything done before, and then I, you know, get about, you know, St. Patty's Day planting potatoes, and then right after that, I'm planting tomatoes. That's kind of like my routine. Because if I go too early, you know, I'm looking for stuff in April and places to try to put these things. And since we don't grow, at least, you know, you know, the greenhouse is, you would need something, you know, in April to put tomatoes in up here in a greenhouse.
Yeah.
At least early April for sure. So
Yeah. Yeah, we like to hit the ground with a 5-week tomato.
right. You know, Dr. Whitey has a tomatillo too.
Oh yeah, I grew it last year. I did a
Really?
big
Do you like that
tomatillo
one?
grow up, man. It was insane.
You did the Malanco. What is they called?
Queen
Malalanco?
yeah.
Yeah. Those,
They were great. Little cracking last year on those, but enough to get to market and enough to get seeds out of.
mhm.
Yeah, I did Rio Grande. I did little purple ones that my neighbor gave me here in town, and so my heritage is Pennsylvania German, but I live in a town that's 50% Mexican, and there are basically 3 states that the people came here to work in the mushroom factory. Like if you ate a mushroom this week, it most likely came from my town because we
Crazy.
grow mushrooms here like crazy.
Crazy.
But like in my neighborhood, I have 5 neighbors and 3 of them are from Mexico. So like the stuff that I started growing from Mexico is just continually goes up because I get gifted seeds like every party I go to. Well, not in a year, but
Right.
yeah. So, and I had already grown some stuff, and I think that kind of gave me some street cred. Like they were like,
Right.
"Oh, it's
Like,
Papalo."
give it to Papa Mountz here. He'll go for
Yeah.
it. That's fun.
Um,
This one's a really good one. I don't know if you can read that one. The Garfunya.
no, I never grew that one.
This one is it's one of the, I think it's one of my top 3 Italians. Personally, it's super large, pink, and it doesn't get like too misshapen too, which is nice, but it'll have kind of a little bulging like top sides a little bit, kind of a little, but a pretty nice bottom. Just in terms of flavor, this is one of those that doesn't make a lot of seeds.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but what's fortunate about that is it has so much good meat. Uh,
Yeah.
and sometimes those seeds can be super rare, and I think that's needs to be understood too. Is some seeds, some tomatoes, and some plants don't make many seeds very quickly.
Yeah.
And it takes years to get that crop to produce. You got to get. I mean, this was how many seeds we harvested
Yeah.
2020 off of a huge row of tomatoes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cases of tomatoes, and so I mean, they might have 5, 6.
Oh wow.
Some of them have like absolutely nothing in there. I think there's another one that I grew years ago that I stopped growing because it was so hard to get seeds out of it. The Reef's Red Heart.
No, I
If you
never
heard
grew
that
that.
one. There's a couple that are really tasty that are sought after, but I think the rarity becomes more rare because of how fast you can actually produce that seed. And it's just you don't have much seed in the plant, so the fruit. So
I grew Schuler's last year, and I can't find any information. I can't even remember. I didn't mark down where I got it. Then in my notes it says did not take a picture of, so I don't have a picture of it. But I remember because
yeah.
in the field notes I wrote, "This is the biggest paste tomato that I've ever grown, and it's huge, and it has a seed cavity like that big,
Mm-hmm.
But the flesh looks like Kobe beef when you slice into it, It's like marbled and just beautiful, and the flavor was off the charts.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm always continuing my hunt for peach tomatoes. So I have orange. Orange is like my favorite. If I had to pick a peach, I grow a lot of garden peaches, and a lot of people that don't like tomatoes like that tomato.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, when I pick that first orange one,
Mm-hmm.
and it's fuzzy, I just
I have
sit there.
I have a yellow fuzzy. It's not the Whipsicicon.
Yeah,
It's a different one. And then I think there's another one. There's a yellow fuzzy boar.
yeah,
Have you seen that one?
yeah,
Yeah.
and pink jazz.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I have black peach, which is pretty cool.
There's a
And then
black one?
yeah,
Oh, fun. Huh. I don't know if I've seen that one. Maybe I have.
and then I have one that looks just like a peach, and I named that one after my brother, and that's Hermanos. Um, and then pink and red, and then there's a peach zebra, with
Mm.
yellow on yellow stripes, and it's
Mm.
fuzzy. Um, so yeah, I for a while was doing quarts of just peach tomatoes, and they were amazing looking and flew out.
You just do them
Um,
whole.
Chadwick's cherry is one of my favorite cherries. I got it one time I was in the UK at a little garden center, and it's just, I kind of actually got to the point where I was not growing red cherries,
Right.
and then got the seeds and tried that in my home garden, and it was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also a friend came back from China with a pack of seeds that's had no English on it. And then I got another person to say what it is, and it said Big Red, and I was like,
Right.
I grew that, and I was like, I love this tomato.
Right.
So I grew it again, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna select something out of this. So I went through a selection process and saved for just like the perfect red tomato. So that's you don't stop.
That okay.
My Beastie Boys
I like
tribute.
that. I know. I love that name. That's great.
And then a Riga is like another. It's a little bit bigger than a cherry, but still, I would say it's a cherry, and it's orange, and it's where I go when I'm hungry in the field. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's phenomenal. I let some people grow it in tunnels last year, and they really had a great year with that. Um, yeah, those are like my top picks from last year. I did a big grow out last year, so there were just
Mm-hmm.
it was so much charts and organization. It was hard to keep it all straight, but I did.
Right. Yeah, that is the
um,
fun part about when you grow so many different varieties of things and trying to, I hate it when something gets messed up. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Or something missing a label, or because there's so many points in the season and times for things to get messed up.
yeah,
An unlabeled thing, and that's so much work that goes on, wasted, some time.
yeah. I have a big bag on my desk where we do all of our packing, and it's just like taped to the wall. and it doesn't have a name on it, and I just leave it there as like, remember this.
You're like, just remembrance of don't just label everything correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's definitely a super importance to labeling stuff. I mean, and very, we date and label and over label as much as we can. I got the color code labels again this year, just so I can color code things. And that tends to help any type of organization, that can further out your, spacage and,
Yeah.
to know where things are, can help too. So,
Yeah. And we kind of separate in the field like production from seed saving.
mm-hmm.
So the seed saving part of the field can, be more spaced out with other stuff growing in it, and the production stuff is like, if you see 50 tomatoes in a row and you lose the tag, like, when you hit a new tomato, and there are pretty much like, there's probably 10 or 15 that change in that, but there's 30 or 40 varieties that we grow every single year that we have a fan base for.
We do the same thing, and I tend to save out of those block rows too.
Yeah, I'll say from the middle of those block rows for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I rogue every year, but I have very, very little crossing. We have bumblebees here, which can cross, but by the time the flowers open, 99.9% of them have already, self-pollinated.
I tell people to send it back to me, and I'll send them some more seeds, because that's probably something you want to keep.
Yeah.
Some of those outcrosses can be fun. How do you think, Brad Gates started his company?
Yeah.
Those are outcrosses. That whole company is outcrosses. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So that's what it is. That's finding cool stuff in the field, and rolling with it, so.
You find anything cool this year in the field?
I have. Yeah, there's some stuff. I have a experimental little black super wavy cherry. That's really cool. That was a couple years ago, and that's a segmented like F2, if you will, I guess now. So it'll be an F3 this year, hopefully. And I think that's kind of the, trying to find stuff, and then it takes obviously 2 or 3 seasons, if not more, if not a lot more, to try to figure out if, I don't have enough patience, I think, at some points in time.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh God, okay, this isn't working. And I'll drop a project if it's, and I know the blue fires I got some stuff from Tom Wagner, like in 2000, I don't know, 14 or something like that. And so I've worked on a lot of different, he has like the Muddy Waters.
Yeah.
Called, or the Tom Wagner Blue Green. It's kind of adapted a few names, but there was a lot of segments out of there that I pulled, and I have that's where Blue Sun comes from. Blue Sun is like, I think it's the best tasting blue yellow tomato that's out there. It has a little variation still in it, and so I've kind of, and tried to pull it into, there's a Blue Fire, which is a blue orange.
Yeah, I saw that one.
That's out of that cross too as well. So I think the blues are kind of the most fun, because I've been hyper selecting for flavor. Going back into what you're saying, like some of them don't taste very good. So trying to find stuff that does taste good, and then reselecting on that has been definitely promising, and put off some pretty good flavors of stuff. And then looking at all those people that are crossing stuff overseas and pulling some stuff from them. And there's another program, JNL in New Mexico, that all those bumblebees, the Bosque bumblebee is from. And there's programs all over the place. I mean, you just got to kind of be selective and hyper selective about, where you're going and what you want to do, and what am I trying to create here? So that a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I think I like the new and the old. I think that's what's been fun. Is I always save the old, but because you need the old to create the new.
Yeah.
So because you can take pieces of all of that. So I think that's what needs to be understood too, is saving that old. Diversity is so important. So
yeah, I love the stories.
The stories are terrific.
Yeah, it's just fantastic.
Yeah. Well, cool. Let's do this again, man. I think I'd love to hear more about your tomato school and stuff like that. I mean, maybe let's get this out to the people, and let's let them see if they want another one. I'm sure people are going to want to hear and have a billion questions, since we didn't do it live. But
well, that would be nice. That we can answer questions and go from there. And
This is a good start. I wanted to just kind of touch base and be like, okay, here's some stuff on tomatoes, and this will kind of get your juices flowing too for the season. And I'm super excited, and maybe even like a check-in, just to see how your field and what your starts look like, and all
Sure.
that stuff too. We can do something a little more kind of like in the field and stuff too. I'm sure
Yeah, that'd be cool. Our
sure
field is
people want.
situated beautifully on
Yeah,
the
if
Brandywine
if
River.
not the greenhouse, then the field, right? I'm sure
Yeah.
people want to see what our setups and stuff look like. So,
Yeah.
cool. All right, Timmy.
All right, man.
Cool.
Nice to put a voice to a face, and
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Well, one of these days we'll get over to each other's farms. I know we're like 3,000 miles away, but
Yeah.
I'll make the trip. I got some family back east, so
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Nice. We're gonna start traveling again sometime. I don't know when, but
Yeah.
we will.
Cool. Sweet.
All right, man.
Have fun at your daughter's party.
Yeah, I can hear it's starting to like.
It's already starting. Cool.
Yeah.
Take care.
All right, man. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.